I want to start tonight's show off with probably the single most important question of the week. And no, it's not how did the submersible implode? Not do you know what a submersible is? It's not it's a Titanic or Titan. It's not even who's going to be the primary winner or who you're pulling behind in the Republican primary here for 2024. No, nope, not important at all. That's not important. The question that I believe is the single most important question of the week. Are they okay in Canada? Like, for real, serious question. Are they alive up there? Is there anything left up there? I mean, if you're in the Midwest and you've seen, you stepped out of the house this morning, you've seen how hazy it was, and you had these air quality alerts. Did you know that they were advising people not to go outside at all today? Like, don't walk, don't jog, don't do nothing outside. And I gotta wonder. I mean, how much smoke is needed to literally cover a huge swath of a country? Serious question. And if that much of Canada is burning, I mean, God, what's the air quality of them? What's that going to be like? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, pretty crappy out there. But life must go on, so we do what we have to do. Interesting side note, I did see somebody post this online today with regards to the air and the fires and the smoke and the haze and all that goodness. Where's the CDC in all this? Another serious question. I mean, they had all of us masked up and, all these crazy restrictions during the Rona, during the shamdemic. Yeah. Where's the CDC telling people, hey, you might want to put on a mask when you're outside because, smoke particles are actually large enough to be blocked by the mask? I, mm, just saying, especially if you have respiratory issues or anything else like that. That might have been like, I don't know, a good public health announcement. Just for stars, just saying. Anyway, guys, welcome back here. Yeah, that's me. I'm the artist formerly known as the Caramel Conservative. See, I'm gonna have to get an onk just like Prince did. Now, welcome here to the Ed Delgado Show. And as we're going to be doing each and every week, let's go through the rules here. These are the rules of the show. There are three very simple ones, and I ask you to work with that. So, as always, we start off with rule number one. If you're in the chat, don't be saying anything that you won't say in real world. How many times do you guys have this where you talk to somebody one-on-one and they're real cool with you, but the moment they get behind a keyboard, they act really out of line? Not going to have that. Any violation of these rules, I will enact the ban hammer, which of course goes to number two. You start acting out of pocket. Can't have that. You start acting the fool, you got to go. Now, it's cool to have debates. It's cool to go back and forth with one another. Act out of line, you're out. And third, cussing is allowed on the show. Let's try to keep it to hour two and after that. Try to keep it clean come hour one. I know I violated that within like the first 15 minutes of last week's episode, but that's what I do. That is indeed what I do. Um, Throw this out here too. Check out the website there. It's theeddelgadoshow.com. And let's put up the telephone number. So if you do indeed want to call in, that's the live call in number right there. And you can certainly do that. I suppose it would help if I Bluetooth hook that up. And then, of course, you are more than welcome to, if you want to be a part of the conversation on air here, you can call that number or you can send me a DM and I can get you on here. Easy peasy, right? So we got a couple of different stories to get into before I really broach the topic of unity, but all of these is going to be related to this topic of unity going into the 2024 election cycle as we are now underway with the 2024 Republican primary cycle. Obviously, we have Trump, DeSantis, Ramaswamy, Haley, Hutchinson, Christie. Chris Christie just makes me laugh. He's over here acting like he's going to fight Donald Trump for real. It's like, dude, sit down, go have a donut, just chill the hell out. So we're going to deal with all this here. And I want to start here first, a little more local to home. And I want to talk about what's going on with the shared revenue plan in relation, though, to the UW system. So let's share the screen here. Now, thanks for bearing with me on this because I am still working this new technology. There we go. I think we got that. Beautiful. Beautiful. There we go. So I want to get into this one here first because I am fascinated by this whole concept of DEI. And if you know what DEI is, you know that's diversity, equity, inclusion. On its surface, DEI sounds okay, right? I mean, who doesn't, want to have a diverse field of opinions, different people, different backgrounds, who doesn't want to feel included? You want to make sure everybody's included. Equity, well, I've always had a problem with that word equity because when they talk about equity, they're talking about we want to have the same outcome for everybody. What if I put in more work than the person next to me? Should you still have the same outcome? Well, I would only buy into that if, well, eventually, if they get to that point, well, what if they never get there? Oh, they'll get there. Oh, because you'll handicap it. But before I go any further into my thought process on DEI, let's look at this story here. This is from the AP, and it talks about Republican leaders say no more money for University of Wisconsin or school safety office. Notice how they phrase the school safety office, like if somehow Republicans want less safety on college campuses or anywhere for that matter. So, story here, Scott Bauer here writes this. He goes, Republicans plan to make no substantial changes to the state budget, meaning that a cut in the funding to the UW system that puts the entire spending plan in jeopardy of being vetoed will remain, legislative leaders said Tuesday. Democrat Governor Tony Evers has threatened to veto the 2-year spending plan if UW funding for DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is cut. The plan passed by Republican-controlled Budget Committee reduces, and it's not the share revenue plan, excuse me, I misspoke. That was the 2-year funding. Reduces UW funding by $32 million and eliminates nearly 190 positions, money, and staff directed toward DEI staff salaries and programs. All right, let's pump the brakes right here. Let us pump the brakes on this here because you're talking $32 million for 190 people, their salaries and these programs to essentially make you feel bad about your race, especially if you're white, to take a so-called marginalized group and make it seem like they're in the forefront of everything. I find that to be absolutely absurd. And not only is it absurd, but it's a complete waste of taxpayer money. The article continues. However, the budget does allow UW to come back and get the $32 million if it shows how it will be spent on workforce development efforts, which is needed, and not DEI programs. Evers has the power to make line item vetoes, but he could not increase funding with a partial veto. Evers on Sunday told WISN TV that he was waiting to see the final budget text before making decisions on vetoes. His spokesperson, Britt Kutterbeck, referred to those comments Tuesday when asked about the governor's plan. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos said he can't imagine that Evers would veto the entire budget because of the UW funding cut, but Vos says he has not spoken with Evers about it. The Senate is scheduled to vote on passing the budget on Wednesday. It would then go back to the Assembly, which would have to pass an identical version before it would go to Evers. The Assembly could make changes, which would then be sent back to the Senate. Goes yo-yo here. But Senate Majority Leader Devin LeMahieu and Robin Vos, Speaker, told the AP in separate interviews Tuesday that no changes were planned. Democrat Attorney General Josh Kaul, along with school and law enforcement leaders, have been pushing Republicans to increase funding in the state's school safety office. That office, created by Republicans in 2018, was designed to prevent violence in schools after mass shootings at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. So I'm going to go back to some DEI. One of the things that I find most appalling about DEI is when you look at the various businesses, schools, and other entities that have adopted it. To me, it is very cult-like behavior. It is very it is like a religion unto itself. And these DEI trainers, vice presidents, whatever they call themselves with their fancy titles, are little more than the priests that spread the gospel of DEI. As a matter of fact, to make it even scarier when you think about it, in a lot of ways, when these companies have these DEI people, it is very reminiscent of the Communist Party of China, Chinese Communist Party there, where what they will end up doing is they will have an office, the CCP office, in these various businesses, in these schools and everywhere else. And why do they do that? They do it simply so that they can keep eyes and make sure that you're towing the party line. And I see DEI as really no different than that. It is a cult. And my God, if there's something wrong with you if you don't buy into it. I'll give you another good example of that. And this is a real fun one right here. Let's go back to this other story. This is the mentality of these people that push this woke, racist, leftist agenda. And it is racist. And it's racist for a number of reasons. And it's very bigoted in its intent. Because again, I personally don't care if you're a dude and you like dudes, cool, that's you. Chick that likes chicks, that's you. But should I have to acknowledge that? Should I have to, more than just the course of you and I are talking and we're cool? That doesn't make any sense that somehow that makes you special or better or anything else. My thought process, generally speaking, is when you're at work, you're there for a job, perform your job. Most most people don't really care about your family or anything else like that, who you're dating, what you're doing, your kids. Most people do not care. They're there to make money. They're there to do a job. Sadly, most people hate their jobs, but that's a whole nother story altogether. But to this story here, a Penn State professor says that the school forced him out to teach the English language. Forced. This is how they wrote this here. Penn State professor says school forced him out to teach English language is white supremacy, religious cult. Very bad headline, but let's get into this one here. Because again, if you dare to challenge the narrative of the left, well, in doing so, you're the one that's going to be pushed out. So let's take a look at this story here. Former Pennsylvania State University Professor Zach DiPiero is suing the school for discrimination against him on the basis of race. I'm not going to play that. So, professor is suing Penn State for race discrimination after he was subjected to instruction that the English language is racist and the embodiment of white supremacy, all along with additional tirades against white people in professional development trainings, according to a lawsuit. And then that is totally believable because if you look at the people that are espousing these ideas, this woke ideology, DEI, everything else that goes along with that, it is that somehow it is white people's fault. It kind of reminds me, it's like this is the child or the grandchild of the whole intersectionality, that whole hullabaloo that was going on here about what, 6-7 years ago, maybe a little longer. So Professor DiPiero was individually singled out for ridicule and humiliation because of the color of his skin. The lawsuit filed by the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, FAIR. Love how these places all have acronyms. DiPiero is an English professor at Penn State, Abington. Okay. If you don't live in a certain place, it's hard to pronounce those words. When he complained about the continuous stream of racial insults directed at white faculty in the writing department, the director of the Affirmative Action Office told him that there is a problem with the white race, that he should attend anti-racist workshops until you get it, and that he might have mental health issues, the lawsuit alleges. Again, if you push back against their narrative in any way, if somehow there is a problem with you, it's not that you're sitting here with the critical eye, thinking this through and dissecting it logically. You might have mental health issues. There's something wrong with you. Maybe you should be trained in anti-racism. Whatever happened to just, the idea that we judge people based upon the content of the character? Whatever happened to the idea that, you know what, we look at an individual as like, hey, are they a good person or are they just kind of a douche? You know, you don't, and it doesn't need to be, well, he's white, he's black, or whatever. The sad reality is that now we have spent so much time focusing on race. We now have a generation of people that, well, they see themselves victimized just because of their skin color, which is pretty pathetic when you think about all the progress that had been made from the 1960s going up to the early 2000s. And I say the early 2000s because obviously today's current woke ideology didn't just spring up overnight. This is something that's been going on for quite some time. I would say at least 15 years, at the very least. The article continues. Some of the workshops included a presentation captioned, "White teachers are a problem," according to the lawsuit. The "White teachers are a problem" video imposed on Penn State faculty associated white supremacy with all the evils of the world, according to the suit. Hmm, how fascinating. So here's a question. White supremacy is the problem with all the evils in the world. All right. So how do you rationalize slavery? And before you say anything, before you act out of line, I'm simply talking about slavery in the context of pre America, because what the left doesn't really want to talk about is that there was slavery prior to America. As a matter of fact, as horrible as it may sound, but slavery has always been part of the human condition. As far back as there were people, there were oppressors and the oppressed. You know, you had other black tribes that would enslave others through war. You had the same with the Native Americans here in North America. You still have that going on in the modern world here in 2023. Everything from slavery to, in human trafficking to just outright slavery in places like, oh, I don't know, large parts of Africa and the Middle East, China. So these things are real, but it didn't start with America. It has always been. Hell, the Romans had it, the Greeks had it, the English had it. But let's not let facts get in the way of that. Shapiro explained in an interview with Fox News Digital that he was expected by the university to submit to anti-racist brainwashing and doctrine, particularly that he, as a white person, was inherently flawed based on history. He said the university wanted him to believe that as a white individual, I'm somehow responsible for all the injustices and suffering currently in the world and in the history of the world. Kind of takes that ridiculous. I always thought that idea was really stupid. It's like a biblical thing that, the something about the sins of the father, 3, 4 generations. And it's like, who came up with that? Because that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. But if you take a look at what they're doing here, it's the same thing. So if your great, great, great grandfather was a slave owner, which the probability is very high they weren't, that somehow you should be held responsible for that. No, never mind to the fact that you didn't even know this man. No, never mind to the fact that, you never had any slaves. You never oppressed anybody. You've been cool with everybody that you met. You're still the problem. How does that make sense? DePiro continued, I think there is almost a religious cult-like environment where you had the original sin. In this case, I'm white. I need to represent for that sin. I need to keep going to these trainings, keep doing the work. I think they were waging a psychological war campaign trying to break people. They almost broke me, but they didn't. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Cult-like behavior. And that is their religious dogma. His direct report in the English department, his director, is that what he meant? Anyway, Liliana Naden expressed her view that racism practiced against white faculty and students is legitimate, according to the lawsuit. Nadan did not respond to a request for comment. So this woman says that it is okay to be, all right, express her view that racism practiced against white faculty and students is legitimate. So it's funny to me because when these people say, you need to be anti-racist, so what they're trying to say is anti-racist is meaning reverse racism, but normalized, normalized and institutionalized in places where DEI is in. Hmm. So in order to make up for sins of the past, you must be discriminatory against white people. That's what she's saying here. Even though that person hasn't done anything to you. How does that make any sense? The lawsuit alleged that Naden tried to coerce faculty to introduce equity into the grading process to ensure there weren't disparities in penalizing students academically on the basis of race. How about if you just know the material or if you don't? Because really, nobody cares what you look like. They just need to know you can regurgitate the information. Because let's be honest, when you're in a lot of these schools, you're not really learning much. It's regurgitation of information. Okay, we continue. Defendants' bigotry manifests itself in low expectations. They do not expect Black or Hispanic students to achieve the same mastery of academic subject matter as other students and therefore insist that deficient performance must be excused, the lawsuit said. Second, defendants' bigotry manifests itself in overt discrimination against students and faculty who do apply constant standards, especially white faculty. An equity administrator named in the suit, Alana Wong, engaged in breathing exercises in one session and suggested that the white staff needed to hold their breath longer than people of color in order to feel the pain that George Floyd oh my God. These people are psychotic. So hold your breath longer so you can feel the pain that George Floyd felt. I don't think Floyd was feeling much pain considering he was high and just out of his mind. And yes, toxicology did prove that. DePiro and other faculty were thus singled out, caused to experience discomfort and feel the pain on the basis of their skin color, the lawsuit said. Wong no longer works at Penn State. She is currently the vice president of institutional equity at McMaster College. She did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Another professional development video said that white English kills people of color, according to the suit. White English kills people of color, huh? How? Well, let us explore. DePiro's direct report, Naden, similarly instructed her writing faculty to teach that white supremacy exists in language itself, and therefore that the English language itself is racist, and therefore that white supremacy exists in teaching of writing of English, and therefore writing teachers are themselves racist white supremacists. I don't know if you guys follow the mental gymnastics on that one. She also allegedly endorsed a view that racism against white people isn't racism. Racism against white people isn't racism. All right, go figure. The suit added Penn State maintained a DEI webpage where it disseminated racist tirades against white faculty and students on the basis of their race, the lawsuit said. Examples included white rage, white immunity, and white fragility. Again, this is institutionalized cultural reverse racism. We like to say that, racism on all levels is bad. And oftentimes when I hear people saying things or we're talking trash or whatever, somebody's like, man, that's racist. I'm like, no, I'm not racist. It's bigoted. There's a difference. I hate everybody equally. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I'm saying that tongue in cheek. It's a joke. But the point is that when you make comments even off the cuff, like, oftentimes I make jokes about myself, being late or, my whole thing with fried chicken. I do love fried chicken. I mean, it's well known, but that's a stereotype. And some stereotypes can be interpreted as being racist or bigoted, but oftentimes those things are rooted in truth. Not when you start looking at things like white rage or black rage, white immunity, white fragility. That's just outright bigoted right there. DePiro told Fox News that He was especially offended because throughout his career, he had always worked with underprivileged and marginalized communities in both employment and volunteering opportunities. Yeah, I bet he won't be doing that volunteer stuff anymore. How dare you demean anybody based on their natural characteristics that they have no control over, DePiro said. The professor added that the experience in the alleged hostile work environment took an emotional toll on him, and he relied on his family and friends for support. They are seeing me go through this stuff, and they are all very concerned about me, he said. I really honestly feel for people who don't have that kind of support network. I don't see how you can get through something like this alone. I really don't. You know what? Friends, family, support network, very important. But sometimes you got to take a stand on your own. And I think this gentleman is very fortunate to have that support system. But, I'm just saying there are some hills worth dying on. This would be one. The professor added that he never wanted his daughter to go through what he went through, and it pushed him to take action. I remember there was one night I put her to bed, sort of wondering what was going to be in her life when all this is happening. And I remember thinking, if she wants to be a teacher, I don't want her to ever have this kind of work environment and be made to feel like somehow professionally incompetent or morally inept simply because of the color of her skin. When DePiro attempted to raise concerns about being allegedly subject to a hostile work environment on the basis of his race, vis-a-vis a mounting professional development session and workshops, he was met with retaliating compliments and a negative performance review, the lawsuit said. Penn State also warned DePiro that dissenting from Penn State's race-based dogma will result in disciplinary action. Wow. So basically, if you speak out against their diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're going to get disciplined. Wow. Okay. You know what's really scary about that? They don't respect diversity, definitely not of opinion, and they don't. I guess they are inclusive. Like they're including white people in there just so they can, beat them up, so they can use them as a punching bag. Let's see here. Penn State actively treated DePiro as a problem, suggesting mental health treatment and disciplining him for bullying when he dared to complain. As a result, DePiro's only option was to escape the hostile work environment, so as to leave Penn State. This constructive termination occurred on October 2nd of 22, the lawsuit said. Penn State was contacted for comment, and they said they will not be commenting on ongoing litigation. What a world we live in here. All right, I need to take a quick break here. And when we come back, I'm going to go on to a little story on Donald Trump. And then I want to get into this topic of quote unquote unity. So I'll be right back here in about 30 seconds, I think. Yeah. All right, we're back here. And just last week, it was interesting. We had the Paris Picopus. Oh, we don't want to cancel that. Let's cancel that. We do want to close this one out. So, yeah, last Wednesday, there was the celebration of life for Paris Picopus. He's the gentleman here, also podcaster, conservative podcaster here in the state of Wisconsin. He passed away about 2 weeks ago, almost 3 now. And actually, yeah, three today. And they had a celebration of life in Milwaukee area, in Wauwatosa, right next to Milwaukee. And that was last Wednesday. So it was actually really good to see a lot of people. And it was interesting because it was kind of awake, but yet it was, as the event implied, a celebration of life. And a lot of, friends, family, people from across the state came on down to pay the last respects to Paris. And, it's always hard when somebody young ends up passing, and 53 is not very old at all. I mean, he's only got 3 years on me, and then just to go like that. So that just tells you, every day that you wake up is a blessing from God, and don't take advantage of it. So definitely want to put that out there. And thank you to Christopher Lawrence, Ali Schweitzer for putting all this stuff together. And of course, the Procopis family. Perry got to meet his older brother there. Really nice guy. And yeah, the church there did a great job, as did everybody else. So you guys did a great job. I want to move on to this one here, because as we are moving into the presidential primary, here we are, June 27th. And thank God for small favors, because I can't wait for June to be over. Did you know, fun fact, that not only is June Pride Month, and that's really why I can't wait until June is over, because I am so freaking sick of all this pride crap. Suppose I could have done a whole segment on that. Maybe I'll do one tomorrow, a real brief one. But did you know that June is also Men's Mental Health Awareness Month? And guess what? Nobody said boo about it. Not a word. But are we surprised? Now, if you're a man, you know that nobody cares. But I guess if you're a man and you happen to fall into the whole alphabet community, well, that's a whole nother matter too. So we'll get into that later. But this is important here, because as we were looking at what was happening here in Wisconsin with DEI, we're looking at what happened in Penn State there. These are all hot button cultural issues that are going to be very important and pivotal in who we're going to pick here in 2024, 23, going into 24 for our primary here. Now, Democrats have got a hot mess going on right now, because what they have going is Joe Biden, the media turning on him. Are we going to see Gavin Newsom come up out of nowhere? You got, was it Marianne Williamson? And then you have Robert RFK Jr. By the way, RFK Jr., for somebody in his 60s or 70s or whatever it is, oh boy's jacked, takes care of himself. He's got to be on gear. But no, I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he's not 100% natty. Maybe he's 50% natty. Who knows? But Democrat Party has just basically said no to any of the primary debates. Well, here we are, 2 months away from having the first debate here in Milwaukee. And what fascinates me about this is, a couple months ago, Donald Trump was already talking about, well, I'm not going to debate because why would I go somewhere and have people beat me up? Well, the thing that's always rubbed me wrong about that is that when Trump just seems to think, and a lot of his supporters, well, everybody should get out of the way. He deserves another term. Deserves, huh? How about you earn it just like everybody else? That's how it should happen. You should win me. That's how that should happen. In 2016, when he ran in the primaries, I was entertained. I liked the fact that he shook things up, but he didn't impress me. Ted Cruz impressed me. So I voted for him in the primary here in Wisconsin. Excuse me. Voice already cracking. So here we are in 2023. It is up to everybody running right now. Ramaswamy, Haley, Christie, Trump, DeSantis, everybody. You need to win people over. You need to earn your spot. Now, I don't like the fact that we got 300 people jumping into a presidential primary again. Because when you have that many people, and I'm sorry, anybody's like, well, when you have a deep field like that, it makes for good competition. It's like, you truly have no concept of combat, do you? Because when you make a battle royale like that and you say that the winner gets to take on the champion, well, the challenger, that winner of that battle royale, well, they're already beat the hell up. They're bloody, they're broken, bruised, and now you're going to send them up against the champ. You can tell people who've actually been in a fight versus people who haven't, because if you had, you would know that type of thing. And it just kind of really irritates me, because I think if we had a smaller primary, like through a process of elimination, that would make more sense. But instead, we're going to have this all out, drag out fight that's going to cost millions and millions of dollars just in people sniping each other back and forth. And I get it where Trump feels that, you know what, maybe I don't want to have people, bashing on me. But at the same time here, shouldn't you can dish it out, right? So if you can dish it out, you should be able to take it. Well, apparently it's not so much the candidates that he's worried about now. Now it's Fox News. Now Fox News, come on now. Everybody knows what's going on with Fox News. Their opinion shows have gotten to be less and less conservative. Yes, you got, certain, Jesse Waters. You've got, what's his name from the Five? Oh my God, I can't. See, I don't watch Fox News. As a matter of fact, I don't watch a lot of news, TV, period. Do a lot of reading, but not the TV stuff. It's all entertainment journalism. That's all that really is. And of course, we know the whole thing with Rupert Murdoch's kids, and of course, with individuals like Paul Ryan being on the board there. It is definitely taking a shift more toward the left. I'm not going to say it's gone all the way left, but obviously, when you get rid of people like Tucker Carlson, Dan Bongino, you're making a concerted effort to go more to the left than you are to stay on the right. So from USA Today, apparently Donald Trump is now threatening to boycott 2024 Republican debate over the Fox News coverage. Now, you got to understand that, and anybody who knows Trump, whether you support him, don't support him, one does have to acknowledge that Trump is a spoiled, impetulant child in a lot of ways. Now, he's done a lot of great things as president, no doubt about that. But come on, take a look at the last 3 years. Every time he sits there, he rehashes things from 2020. Enough is enough. And then, of course, you got the people that, he's going to be president in March. He's going to be president in August. There was a firefight in Argentina or Germany for Argentina's servers. It's the type of thing you see in a G.I. Joe episode. That's why some people shouldn't watch TV. Well, anyway, so now Trump is upset because Fox News wasn't covering some of his past events, and we'll dive into this here. Former President Donald Trump jacked up threats Monday that he will skip at least the first Republican debate, complaining that one of the sponsors, Fox News, has ignored his recent campaign events. Fox did not broadcast Trump's weekend speeches in Washington, D.C. and Michigan, and then, he quoted as, "Then want me to show up and get them ratings for their presidential debate when I'm leading the field by 40 points," Trump said on Truth Social. Serious question. Who's really on Truth Social? I mean, it's a serious question. I don't see it. I haven't been, but maybe it's just me. I think it's a big echo chamber that's not worth being on, but hey, you do you. Sorry, Fox News, life doesn't work that way, former president said. Trump made his latest threats as a rising number of Republicans are trying to pressure him into participating in debates, starting with an event in August in Milwaukee. Let's see. We carry on. Reince Priebus, a former White House chief of staff and Republican Party chairman, predicted on ABC's This Week that Trump would eventually jump in, if only to respond to rivals like former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. "I think it'll happen," Priebus said, adding that the nation is in the midst of middle finger politics, the world of WrestleMania politics, the world where, attention is what everyone is seeking in order to get support. Boy, he could not have spoken more truth. I was thinking about this today. And as I'm doing these videos now, I'm kind of trying to take a more tame approach. I'm not trying to go out of line, cussing up a storm like I have in years past. But I am definitely one that if I'm going to go into something, right, and depending on how you're dealing with me, I'm going to mirror exactly how I'm going to deal with you. And then I'm probably going to escalate it. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with conservatives and Republicans as a whole, is that we don't fight like we want to win. We don't fight as dirty as the other person. If somebody fights dirty, maybe you need to fight dirtier. People often use the phrase, we're fighting for the soul of America, most important election of our lifetime. But yet people aren't campaigning like it's fighting for the soul of America, or the most important election of your lifetime. The advocates are tearing each other up more against each other than they are against the left. And I thought about this. I'm like, if a lot of these people had their act together, if there was truly unity, and we'll get into that here in a minute, people like me wouldn't exist. Like, I only exist because there are people that aren't willing to put up that type of fight. There are people that aren't willing to say what needs to be said. These are the same people that respond to false accusations of racism and bigotry and misogyny and oh no, I'm not like that. It's like you need to fire back just as hard and respond on why those claims were baseless, they're garbage, and ask the question point blank, why are you projecting your misgivings on me? Because this is a classic tactic of the left, and they have done this for decades, that whatever it is that they are guilty of, they are throwing that back on you. And it can be baseless. There can be no evidence for it, but they know they have the media in their hand, and you're going to respond back to it. Spineless, weak, feckless, effeminate. And that's been the problem, I think, with Republicans and conservatives for many years now, that they're not trying to fight like they're the third monkey trying to get onto the ark. And that is how you need to go forward with that. So let me continue here. This wonderful article. And Rents is absolutely correct. Politics these days is a blood sport. Republican opponents also urged Trump to debate, saying he owes it to the GOP primary voters. Christie, the former governor of New Jersey, has been particularly vocal, saying that the only reason Trump would refuse to debate is fear. If Trump doesn't want to debate, then he doesn't want to be president, Christie tweeted on Monday. I agree with the tweet. Fear is not part of the equation. For Christie or anyone else to say that's just tone deaf. That's blind. That's stupid. I don't think Trump is really afraid of anything. Trump has long suggested that he would avoid Republican debates, in part because of supporting organizations. In recent years, Trump has attacked coverage on Fox News, which will simply supply questionnaires for the Milwaukee debate. Trump previously praised the network, but now complains that they favor Republican rival Ron DeSantis. Even if they did, and here's a problem I have with Trump. Even if they did favor Ron DeSantis, which there's no evidence to state that, if they had favored Trump, he would just be singing their praises, talking about how great they were, even if he trashed them the week before. There's no consistency with Trump. That's a problem. The former president and 2024 nomination frontrunner has also attacked officials with the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Library, which is planning to host a Republican debate in September. One of the biggest problems with Trump is that he picks fights where fights aren't needed. And in that, I mean, in this particular story, did he really need to go in on Fox News? Or could he just simply kept it close to the vest and say, you know what? I'm just not going to. Or why not? Just don't feel like it. I'm 40 points up. I'm coming at this from a position of F you. You know what I mean? When you're that far ahead, what do you really have to prove? He's got the name recognition. He's got the experience. He's got, he's got foreign policy down. Okay. Why exactly am I debating? I mean, definitely go out and campaign, but if I was advising him, that's probably what I would say. You're 40 points up. If you lose 10 points, then we worry. But even if you lose 10 points, you're still 30 points up. That's how I would take a look at that. But let's tie this all together here. Let's tie this all together under the concept of unity. This idea that as a Republican Party, we are unified. And I do have serious questions about, are we unified? Is there unity? Or is this all just talking points? This past weekend, not this past weekend, the weekend before, I was up in La Crosse. And I've heard several people talking about how in their review of the 23 Republican convention that they felt that there was this great deal of unity that was happening. And maybe I'm misreading the tea leaves. And if I am, please by all means correct me on this. I saw it better this year than I saw it last year. But I also recognize this is a non-election year. And we just had a very, very bitter losing Supreme Court race here just back in April. I still don't see unity within the Republican Party. I was talking to a young lady who I hope to have on the show relatively soon by the name of Allie Schweitzer. And she was talking about, a speech she had on unity. I've, heard Brian Schimming, the chair for Republican Party of Wisconsin, talking about, unity and how he saw it, within the convention itself. And then, of course, over the last 2 years, I've seen this idea of unity, talked about through the lens of these so-called patriot groups and even individual podcasters. So my question on the onset is, when you speak of unity, under whose banner? A lot of the patriot groups, and I think there was a bit of a legitimate question here when they say, yeah, you want us to be unified, but only under what you say, as they talk about to the state party. And I think there's something to that because I think many of these patriot groups just simply want to be heard and to have a seat at the table. I think a lot of them are going about it wrong, but at the same time, there is a legitimate complaint here when you speak of unity. Are you talking about I'm giving the orders and you're going to fall in line? Or is it, hey, let's come to consensus. Let's talk these things out. Let's work it out together as a group. And not just within the county party system, because there's a lot of people within these patriot groups, they're out there and they feel disaffected by the county party system, by the state party. They still are members of both, but they don't really interact that way because they don't they just see the same old, same old. Now, to the other side, the patriot groups, a lot of times they make very unreasonable requests, demands, and everything else. Take a look at the whole Toss Voss movement, which was just a joke and garbage from its inception. You know, the idea that, okay, we need to get rid of him because he didn't overturn the election. Well, number one, he didn't have the authority to do that. He needs to reclaim our electoral votes. Nah, dude, when the electoral votes go up and they're counted on the federal level, it's like no return, no refund. You can't undo that. So are we all supposed to unify under that banner? Are we supposed to unify under a Republican conservative banner such as, oh, I don't know, mine, whatever mine would be? Or how about some other podcast out there who just kind of popping off in the mouth that might not even live here in the state? When we speak about unity, what are we really talking about? Because I honestly don't think we have I don't see unity right now. I see fragmented groups of conservatives, and I think some are a little more fringe than others. And when I say fringe, I'm talking outside of the political norm. I'm not saying that you're crazy. Some of you are. Okay. And call me. I'll talk. We'll talk. You have people that are, like I said, they're a little bit on the fringe there. And then, of course, you got some that are just way the hell out there. And some of those cats, I don't even want to deal with. I really don't. But then you also got some that are just the standard toe the line group. You got some of the moderates in between. You got the right-leaning libertarians, the disaffected liberals, the classic liberals. One of the other problems that we have as Republicans, as conservatives, is that we're horrible storytellers. We don't know how to draw people in with an emotional hook. We don't know how to draw people in and get them to feel something other than outrage, which is very easy to do. Anybody can do that. A child can do that. My dogs can do that. But when you draw somebody in with an emotional hook, that gives you the ability to tell them a story. And in telling them a story, it'll give you the ability to also put in facts. Now, if you can entertain them, that's even better. And then you leave them with a positive feeling. Because remember, people remember how you make them feel. If you can do that, then you can win these people over, which leads to a bigger problem. If you do, at some level, manage to become a storyteller, if you do and have the ability to sell the brand better than what we've done in the past, you're going to be bringing in new people, which is great, which is absolutely what we want. But again, are you dealing with them from a top down structure, as in fall in line? This is what we need you to do. Or are you taking in what these people have to bring to the table? And I think this is a huge opportunity that's been wasted and squandered. And it's not just on RPW, it's also on patriot groups, individual conservatives, bloggers, podcasters, everybody, anybody influential, anybody within the state of Wisconsin that is involved in the Republican and or conservative movement on any level. And it's kind of funny. I had a conversation with Orlando Owens about this many times over the last year. Conservatives are so independent that we don't like the idea of somebody telling us what we should do, that we should fall in line, or we need to do this going forward. It's like, no, no. I'm going to be defiant to you just because you told me to do that, even though I was going to do it anyway. Whereas Democrats are more collectivist in their thinking, hive mind, as Paris would once say, Borg like. And they're very quick to fall in line because they take a look at the bigger picture that way. I don't know if they take a look at the bigger picture. I just think they lack the ability of critical thinking or just thinking, period. But they do fall in line at a quicker pace than conservatives do because, again, they're collectivists. We're not. We value individualism, personal responsibility. They do not. So, what's the solution going forward with this? How do we unify, especially here in the state of Wisconsin, and do it quick? And quite honestly, I don't know if we can do it by the time August rolls around. I don't know if we can do it by the time the next convention in Appleton comes around. But if we're going to be doing things, we need to start now. And it has to start at the county party system. And these guys need to get out into the community. And I don't mean just have a fair booth, have a fair booth. I don't mean just, show up to whatever dinner, a picnic or something like that. All those things are nice. All those things are fun. But actually going out into the community, bringing new members into the county party system. And I think RPW needs to hold the county parties a lot more responsible than what they have in the past. For the county parties that have been putting in work, doing things like they're supposed to, hey, big ups. That's good. I respect that. I respect that energy. I respect that you're trying to draw more people in. For the county parties that are doing nothing, you go to an open air event, great. You go to a county fair, you're hidden somewhere, not cool. You don't have meetings, don't do any of that, don't fundraise, don't no, you don't recruit new members, no. RPW needs to clamp down on those type of county parties because if all you're doing is having a social club, then expect no growth. As a matter of fact, you should expect losses within your county. Your once reliably red counties will start turning purple. And why? Because as a county party, you didn't do your job. And for those county parties that are doing their job, step up your game. Reach out to more people. Bring more people into the fold. And I think this is where working together, various counties, especially in the rural areas, you can have tri-county events, things like that. Reach out to also patriot groups. If you got reasonable people that you can talk to, maybe they're not 100% on board with the Republican Party, but you know what? If you agree with somebody 80% of the time, you don't have a 20% enemy. You have an 80% ally, and you need to leverage those relationships. That's how you can start building unity. Now, if you're dealing with an individual that says, the one thing they can't rock with you on is Robin Voss, well, if that's what's gonna disrupt everything, then you got to cut that one loose. If it's any other number of issues, you could probably work through that. But there has to be a way going forward for the county parties, state party, patriot groups, individuals to work collectively together without being collectivists, if that makes any sense. But so I'm sure we'll talk more on this here later on. I just wanted to do this quick episode tonight. I know normally I'm been doing longer episodes, but with getting back into the swing of things, I need to work on the website. I still got phone calls to make tonight. Need to line up more guests, and I will be having more on here. I got a couple big names coming up. I don't want to drop it just yet, but you guys are going to enjoy it. You guys are going to enjoy it a lot. So look forward to seeing you guys. And I want to thank you guys for checking in here. If you're listening on the audio only, make sure you check out our website. That is the EdDelgadoShow.com. And of course, you can reach out to me there. My email, of course, is contact. I don't have my email here in the caption. Ain't that something? I'll put that up later. Contact at the Ed Delgado Show. So thank you guys for being here. Good night. God bless you. God bless the great state of Wisconsin. God bless America. I'm out.